People are fed up with how many subscriptions they're needing to pay for.
The thing is not the thing. The
People,
is the thing.
People don't care about the stuff. They care about what the stuff makes possible. I'm seeing, certainly in the last 6 to 12 months, there's more visible frustration around tech.
My guest today is Mike Morrison. He's co-founded the Membership Academy, runs the Membership Geeks, the Retain Live membership conference in the UK, and has had a front row seat to more memberships than almost anyone alive. We're going to spend the next hour or so talking about real problems and practical solutions that membership business owners face and how you can use these strategies and techniques to improve your membership business. Mike, you run the Membership Academy, of which I've been a member for many years. It's a community for membership site owners and aspiring membership site owners. And every day, your community is essentially a live feed of things that are breaking in the space, things that are working in the space, news, etc. What's a question or complaint that is coming up inside the Membership Academy now, these days, that maybe isn't showing up in public conversations yet or isn't widely acknowledged as a thing?
Yeah, I think it's not so much something unique to memberships and not even something, that the general public isn't aware of, but I do think it's something that's getting drowned out a little. But everyone is feeling the impact of AI on their membership business, particularly its effect on search and discoverability. So a lot of people who built memberships, and a lot of people who built online businesses, for so long we've relied on that whole inbound marketing thing, organic content growth, publishing blogs, podcasts, videos. And it's kind of recognizing that those aren't as reliable as they used to be. And we can't rest on our laurels. And I think people realizing that, okay, sales are dropping, but maybe conversions aren't. Where's the problem? And actually realizing that it's right at the kind of the top of the funnel. Whereas I think for a lot of years, discoverability has never been easy, but quality content always found a way of reaching the right people because search engines, YouTube, podcasting apps were built for discovery. They were built to direct people who had questions, problems, interests to the best solution, the best thing to address it. And now a lot of them aren't. Now, the likes of Google, they are in the business of answering those questions themselves rather than telling you who can answer it for you. So I think more and more people are starting to realize that first and foremost, this isn't a trend. It's not a fad. It's not a little blip. But also that they don't have a sales problem. And for a lot of time, people have been so focused on what is the right conversion offer? What's the right price point? How should my sales page be structured? But actually the challenges now are even further back. It's an audience growth problem. And it's getting misdiagnosed as a sales challenge because, people are just looking at, okay, sales from my email list are dropping. The members just aren't coming in as quickly as they're leaving. And it's because they don't have that continuous list growth, that continuous audience growth. So I think that's definitely something people are realizing a lot more of how this is mainly impacting and what the main impact for people who are running memberships, who are selling expertise is discoverability. But at the same time, people are becoming far more discerning when it comes to subscriptions in general. And this is something that's coming to the fore within the community. Subscription fatigue is at its absolute highest. People are fed up with how many subscriptions they're needing to pay for. The data shows it. There's about 40 or 50%, I think, from a recent report, said they have more subscriptions than they want. A little more than that saying they intend on cancelling or culling some of their subscriptions in the next year. And I think it was about 60% of people have said that now if they're considering starting a new subscription like a membership, that process involves them having to cancel another subscription. So now when you're trying to grow your business, you're trying to grow your membership, you no longer have to be concerned with trying to convince people of the value of your membership. You've also got to convince them that it's worth canceling another membership or another subscription for. And again, I think people are starting to actually see that within their audiences and realize your competition isn't other people in your industry. Your competition is Disney Plus. Your competition is Amazon Prime. Your competition is, your local gardener who now charges you on a subscription basis. So I think that's coming through more and more. And I do think tied in with that, I'm seeing certainly in the last 6 to 12 months, there's more visible frustration around tech
Hmm.
because all of these things, these new challenges, have emphasized member experience and emphasized the actual personal experience, the ability to tailor and personalize, the accessibility of the community functionality. This is now all greatly emphasized by membership owners who are realizing, we have to go to that. We have to make sure our experience is absolutely top notch. We have to make sure our community is just totally in sync. And I don't necessarily think all of the tech makes that easy. When membership owners are just lasered in on just got to get my content, as long as my content's awesome, everything's great. There's a lot of fantastic content systems out there. There's a lot of fantastic learning management systems out there. But for facilitating actual member experience at the level I think it needs to be at in 2026 and beyond, there's a lot of cracks that are showing in the tech stack. So much of that I think comes down to integrations as well. Integration's never been seamless between like getting tools to talk to each other is like getting people speaking completely different languages to harmonize. It's always been a challenge, and you'll know this a lot better than I do. But I think it's having more of an impact now, and seeing so many more of these frustrations coming out in my community, and it all links in together.
Super interesting. And I know you're not suggesting that the offer is unimportant, but I think if I may, what you're saying is that it's not going to carry as much of the weight as it did previously, just like content. Even great content is not going to carry much of the weight. People are more so interested in the experience, as you said, the results. People want accountability. People don't want a membership. They want the thing is not the thing.
Yeah.
The
People
result
people
is the
people
thing.
don't care about the stuff, they care about what the stuff makes possible. And you'll always get people who, they I don't think we've ever had a period where someone's like on mass people have been joining memberships with no purpose, with no expectation of an end result. But I think the patience is a little thinner now. The
Mm,
expectation that again, you can go to ChatGPT, type in a challenge or a problem you've had, and within an instant you're presented with a solution. It doesn't matter if that solution sucks. Got to remember, and I think too many people are fixating on this idea of, well, ChatGPT couldn't replace my expertise because I've got all this experience and I tested it out and the answers were rubbish. Your audience doesn't know that. They don't know
mm,
enough to know that what ChatGPT or Claude or whatever is telling them isn't as good as what you're telling them. And even if they do, we're asking them to kind of to put a price on it. Like,
yeah.
okay, so if this gives me like a decent answer and this gives me a great answer, is that difference important enough to pay $50 a month for? So I do think the expectation level of the average consumer is higher. At the same time, the competition for their dollar is higher. They are tired of all these little subscriptions that once upon a time were like a gift from God. Oh wow, I can get the Adobe Creative Suite that used to cost 500 or 600 bucks per tool. I can get that for $20 a month. We're now years on and that price is just being gouged up, and then there's 20 other things that they're sick of it. They're tired of it. So we need to do more. The things that helped us stand out and attract members 5 years ago are not working now. It's not enough. And that's always been the case. I think with memberships, my favorite thing is that they're always evolving and always changing. But I think people are starting to really see that the scope of these changes is probably bigger this time than it's been before. And yeah, the frustration. I don't think the tech's keeping up with it.
No, and you adapted yourself because you restructured the Membership Academy in 2025. And as I recall, you made the flagship roadmap free, the flagship roadmap course free. You combined a few of your tiers. You added some advanced content specifically for folks who are scaling. And I think now you have an accelerator as well, which I wasn't aware of that. I'd love to hear more about that. But what made you actually pull the trigger? What made you restructure things? Was it in anticipation of all of these changes partially?
Partially, yeah. It was an intentional doubling down on the growth segment. People who were already up and running. And I think it was that thing of, obviously, there's a few factors, and I'll run through in a little, but I think the main thing that really got my juices going on that was the fact that from 2024 on, we were looking ahead to our 10th anniversary for Membership Academy. And I think it just kind of hit me one day. It's like, holy hell, 10 years, 10 years in internet years. That's a lifetime.
It's your midlife crisis right there. That's
Yeah,
like time to
right.
get the Porsche, hair transplant, all of it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, fortunately, I'm not there yet, but I'm telling you, there's 20 new grays every minute. But no, like, it was that realization of, like, obviously I'd known every year we mark the anniversary of the Academy. We do a little 12-month recap, and I've done it all the time. So I've never not realized how mature that our membership was getting. But then I was thinking, okay, so the clients that I worked with before we launched the Academy, they're now still running. They're going in their 12th year, their 13th year. Other great memberships like drumyo.com, good friends with Jared, it's one of my favorite memberships. They're at 15 years now. It's like, holy hell, like, these memberships are teenagers. The needs of a 10-year-old membership are not the needs of a 1-year-old membership.
Mm-hmm.
They're not like people in my community. I've still got people who joined on literally the day I opened. They are still paying members. I think you yourself, I think you've been in the community for like 8 years or something like that. Like, our needs have changed and evolved so much, and the market has changed and evolved so much. So I think that kind of that real hitting home, that stepping back and realizing back in the day in 2015, and you've been around this space as long, if not a bit longer than me, I think. And you know what it was like. Memberships were such a tiny little industry. The tech was horrendous. There weren't many people giving you advice about it, and the people who were, 80% of them were doing it in a very scammy, very scummy kind of way, continuity programs, lock someone into a subscription and then make it difficult to cancel. Like, it was a cesspit, I think, this industry around 2015. And so the kind of help people needed was very different. The tech, there weren't many great options.
Yep.
Some of the ones that have gone on to become strong were very early on.
Some are gone.
So a lot have gone.
Dead and gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot have gone, and some went gracefully, some went very disgracefully. And so the things that people needed back then, these days, the tech is better. The training is better. There are more people out there helping with starting up a membership. Like, the industry's grown so much that people have become experts in certain parts of the process. There's a lot of general online marketers who are also giving advice about membership. So with all of that, coupled with the data, like, when we started out, I would say it was about a 70-30 split between people who wanted to start a membership and people who had one and wanted to grow it or figure out, how to run it better. And that flipped over the years. So we will find more and more people coming in already with a membership. That was sped up by the pandemic, without a doubt.
Sure.
The pandemic, we saw a lot of people pivot to the model. So we're getting a lot more people coming in who needed help with that growth stuff. Most of them came in, and for the first few months, it was almost relearning what they should have done to launch properly. But after that, okay, how do you equip someone for year 5, year 10, year 15? So seeing the market shift, seeing my audience need shift that way, backing it up with the data, really kind of galvanized my thinking that actually I want to be there for those people. I want to get people to the 10 years.
Yeah.
And realistically, now with the tech that's available, you can spin up a membership in under an hour. He's been on 10 minutes. Go along to Kajabi, give them some money, press a button. You have a functional membership site. It's not going to be a very good one, but you have this. You never used to be able to do that. If someone does it properly, 90 days, I reckon. 90 days is a good enough time to actually get your ducks in a row, get all the pieces of the puzzle in place. Even if it takes twice as long as that. That is now such a small part of the lifetime of a membership owner. I'd much rather just like give people what they need for free to do those 90 days so that I can get them for the next 10 years.
Ah, the Hormozy strategy.
Yeah, if you have to do, and yeah, again, a lot of Alex's stuff, I think that little shift in perspective, I was literally, I was in a, I was in a chair for 10 hours at a tattoo, getting the tattoo done, reading through Hormozy's books on my Kindle and just writing notes. And that little shift of like, yeah, like give away all the things that will get someone to such an advanced stage. And then you're the person who helps them with that stage. Again, that my thought process had already started going that way. That just solidified it because, of course, it's right. Like, sacrifice the earning potential of the first 90 days and actually pick people up at the point where no one's helping them. And there's a few other things in there as well. We tested 2 tiers for a while because I wanted to try and make the membership financially as accessible as possible. But after a year of that, we crunched the numbers. People at that cheaper tier, which was $39 a month, the churn rate was double.
Yeah, of course.
Literally double. Like it was 12% churn at 39 a month. It was just under 6% at 65, which for the type of membership we have, I'm very happy with that. So yeah, people who paid more stayed more. So we doubled down on that. So yeah, I do. I do think it's just that combination of reading where the industry was going, seeing, getting a perspective on that big picture of like, holy hell, like this membership thing, this is the kind of business that is multi-decade. You set a
Yeah.
membership up the right way, you have the right help. You're potentially going to be strong for 10, 15, 20 years. And there's not a lot in the online business space where someone could say that. And yeah, I wanted to be the person who helped them beyond that first 90 days. And also, honestly, there was a little bit of pettiness in when we gave away. So we made our launch roadmap, which is like a proper signature course. Pretty damn good if I say so myself. We made that just free. Some of that was pettiness because there's people charging $3,000 for what now is not basic information, but yeah, like, no. We just kind of want to like, no, you know what? Have this for free. Instead of paying $3,000 to get some outdated
How
information.
dare you? How dare you give something valuable away for free?
I know, right? But no, some of it was a little bit pettiness because I took issue with the fact that people are charging $3,000 for 6 modules on how to start a membership site. And honestly, yeah, no. Anyway, that's a whole other diversion.
It sounds like it really worked out in a great way because you went up market, essentially, is what happened, or you're serving more people who are already established and really want to.
Yeah, we always had that kind of balance. Like, it's not even so much a pivot, it's more just doubling down. Really is just doubling down. So when we brought in the second tier, this was a cheaper tier we introduced. Some of that was because we'd reached a point where I didn't feel we could continue adding value to the Academy offering without moving to a price point that would make it more financially inaccessible. We were at $65 a month, and we have like a private coaching feature called Pick My Brains. We use Video Ask to facilitate that, where people can send 2-minute video questions that come privately to me, and I reply with a 5-minute private response. Like, that's a huge value add for any kind of membership. And we've got a lot of our members who've modeled that, and that adds so much to the offering. But we brought that in. We've got the member only theme. We were developing tools and so many things I wanted to put in. And it reaches the point where it's like, I can't justify to myself offering all of this at $65 a month. Like, the price needs to go up. And I was concerned generally about putting the price up and cutting out people who were in the earlier stages of the membership. So introducing the lower price tier was to actually remove the ceiling. Big part was to remove the ceiling on the upper tier. But then ultimately, again, the churn rate was the defining factor. Again, memberships are a retention business. And so we got rid of the other tier and we put the price up anyway. Like, well, actually, that helped me make peace with the fact that, I actually feel that people who are early stage, there's a lot of great stuff out there. Our free roadmap that we put out, again, that's only open certain times. They are catered to. And then when they actually reach a point where they are ready to properly scale, then $79 a month it's 2 members.
It's
And
a great deal.
if I can't help people get 2 members a month, I don't deserve their money. So no, it was an interesting one, that one actually. And I think anything you've got to do, like you have to experiment. The only silver bullets in business are data and feedback. Like they are the only things worth paying attention to. Like everything else is guesswork. So I'm glad we did it. I don't like the fact we had to we rolled out a price tier and then rolled it back after a year or so. But actually, that wouldn't do it any differently.
I'm going to go off script here for a second because we're talking about the industry, the membership industry, and I've always had a little bit of cognitive dissonance as to whether or not it could even be considered an industry as such, in that tourism is an industry, hospitality is an industry of large scale manufacturing of a particular thing. It could be an industry. Whereas I've always looked at memberships as just a content delivery vehicle, or let's say an offer. It's like the packaging of the offer is the terms and how you consume, or how you get the result, how you consume the content, or interact with the experience that then gets you the results that ultimately are the thing that you're paying for and that you're being promised. And it's always been difficult for our business in terms of going out and finding clients, because we can't just neatly excavate, like tourism businesses over between 5 and 10 million in the US, with like X amount of employees. So how do you look at it in terms of, I mean, honestly, I would say the Membership Academy and what you do is sort of the light collection of the industry, if you will. It's where do people congregate, and to what degree do people sort of erroneously place their faith in, quote, a membership versus just universal solid business principles, regardless of the actual vehicle, whether it's a Telegram group, that's a membership. WhatsApp group, that's a membership. Access to like a private Facebook group, mastermind, those are all like forms of membership that don't necessarily have a membership site as we think of it.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and this has been a challenge and continues to be a challenge. I think part of the problem is the word membership is so ubiquitous. Like so many companies call their customers members. There was a bit of a drive a couple of years ago where every company started calling their customers members. For no, like there was no change.
Welcome to the members club.
Yeah, there was no change to the dynamic. There was no change, and it's like the word community. We went through a wave where everyone was referring to their Instagram followers as, well, this is my community. Like community was the buzzword. It is a very ubiquitous kind of word because you have membership associations, the more traditional kind of associations. I try to use the term online membership as much as I can to to give a name to the kind of thing that we all sort of know what we're talking about when we mean a membership website. Usually there's a website, usually there's some sort of community hub. Generally it's e-learning content. There's a little bit of coaching in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Yeah, it's a very wishy-washy kind of thing. And I think you're right, it's not so much an industry as it is like a part of the vertical in different industries. Like, yeah, you'll have tourism companies who will provide services. They'll do this. They'll have a membership. It's a model, but it's a type of business. And the fact that there's been a couple of times where it's been a hot trend as a business model doesn't change the fact that ultimately most of the normal rules apply in terms of best business practice. What I do think about this type of business is different and kind of warrants warrants are being talked about as a more isolated and as more of its own distinct thing is the lack of transactional nature. Like, it's not a transactional business. It's a customer retention business, and not retention as in repeat purchases. Like, the money is made after the sale, and the long tail on that initial sale is potentially a decade. Again, like, gosh, we've got people coming up to 11 years who joined at $29 a month, and they've spent over $5,000 with me, and that's just ticking over, ticking over. That, I think, is such a differentiating factor in terms of strategic consideration, in terms of tech setup, in terms of continuous iteration of the product. Like, it needs to evolve.
Hmm.
Talking about that evolution and having to adapt. Like, I've been in product development for Membership Academy for 10 years now. Like, it hasn't stopped. It will stop, but then it'll probably start up again. Like, is you always have to tinker and tweak. So I think for an online membership in particular, it is a little bit of a strange beast, because I think this world is so much smaller than people realize. Like, I refer to it as a cottage industry. It's little, it's tiny relative to the e-learning space. Memberships as a model are a very, very small part. The online product, the digital product space, memberships is a very, very small part. So people get surprised when they come along and say, "What's the industry benchmark for churn?" I was like, "I don't know." But nobody knows. The industry is not really big enough to have any meaningful data on that. Most of the data is either from a small sample size. We do an industry report of a couple of thousand membership
Yep.
owners. That shakes out. I think 6.7% was the average that came from the last of it. But most of the data is from the wider subscription world. SaaS is so much bigger. The SaaS space is so much bigger than the online membership space. It's streaming, so much bigger, so much more money than
Mm.
the membership space. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of a. I think you're right in that it's not necessarily an industry, but I also don't think it can be simplified down to just like it's just kind of a business model, because it is such a, for me anyway, and obviously I'm slightly biased. It's there's such contrast between the best practices that we need to employ versus if we were selling courses, if we were selling, ebooks or even coaching and consulting. Like,
Hmm.
it has its own set of best practices, principles, its own set of technical challenges, its own set of like real long-term strategic considerations. But no, it is an interesting one, and it's a frustrating one, because yeah, it would be amazing if you just go into meta ads and just like target membership owners. Like, no, like, people don't identify as I'm a membership owner. They identify as I'm a profession. I'm a expert on this. I'm an expert on that who has a membership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Okay, well, getting into some of the nitty gritty here. In my research, I discovered, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that you've made the case previously that discounts, and we actually just kind of touched on this, attract people who can't actually afford the membership in its full price,
Mm.
and they churn the moment the full price kicks in. I suppose it depends on what you consider to be a discount. For example, I'm sure there's no shortage of, successful memberships, however you define that, that probably run Black Friday promos, end of year deals, founding member pricing. And what actually should you be doing as far as, I suppose, packaging the offer and getting members in, assuming you have the audience, assuming you have the traffic, looking at your offer? And then how do you discount without ever using that word, because you should never use that word ever, uh, without diluting your brand?
Yeah. So there's I'm gonna butcher a quote, and I don't remember who it comes from. I just know that I've recently read it from, I think, Rory Sutherland, who works for Ogilvy over here, is a marketing oddball and genius. It's kind of, things like advertising and discount are a tax for the unremarkable. It is the tax you pay for your product not being compelling enough on its own merit. That sounds really harsh, and I want to say, like, I've run promos, I've run discounts, I've run offers. But I think we need to look at things through a couple of different lenses. First and foremost, Price-based offers attract price-sensitive members. Like, I, that is just observable in all my years of doing this, in collecting data and our own experiments and working with clients. Price-based offers attract, or are more likely to attract price-sensitive members. And so while they might not instantly churn, the second things get a little tighter, they're gone. So the current stuff that's going on in the Middle East and the impact that's having onto economies, those people who panic and hit the panic button and leave, probably, I would say, if you run offers and discounts, proportionally, most of those people would have been the ones who joined because they're so price sensitive. Same as in the pandemic. Like most memberships, when the pandemic kind of hit and you had that period of real uncertainty at the start about how bad this was going to impact people on a ground level, there were mass cancellations across pretty much every membership business. A lot of them came back and a lot more people came into the world of memberships. But those first people who hit the cancel button would have been the ones who were more price sensitive. So price-based offers attract more price-sensitive people.
And if I may interject, let's call a spade and say that those are generally going to be the worst members.
Yeah.
In kind of all the ways that you would categorize that.
Because the level of commitment, the thing that has got them to join isn't their commitment to the process, to the result, to the journey. Like if they were unwilling to pay at full price, that does put a different perspective on how much skin they're going to have in the game, how committed they actually are, how seriously they are taking this. And I would say the same goes for things like bonuses. I think anything like this, short-term incentives, short-term commitment. And so there'll be a point where reality kicks in and where the norm kicks in. So it's not always the case, but in terms of overall quality, then yeah, you are more likely to be diluting the quality and therefore the long-term retention of the members you bring in when you rely heavily on price-based offers and bonuses. There's also the fact that usually most of the companies who are doing these kind of offers, they're not just doing the Black Fridays. They do Black Friday, they do Cyber Monday, then do
anything.
They then do
it's Veterans
Christmas,
Day.
New Year. It's every, and they are paying the tax for being unremarkable. And they're having to do it because either it's the only way they can, or it's because they've been taught it's the only way they can, or they've got a marketer who only knows how to bring in members if they're slashing prices. But you then train your audience to wait for the offer. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You get to a point where it's like, well, we have to do these offers because no one will join at full price. It's like, well, no, nobody will join at full price because they saw they've spotted the pattern. The human brain is built to recognize patterns. People spot the pattern. Every month, you turn up in their inbox with a new discount or a new offer. So when the need hits and they might organically join your membership, they'll go and they'll look and they'll say, okay, I thought there'd be an offer on. I'll wait till the email comes through. And so, of course, they then only join when the offer comes up because they know it's going to be coming. So training your audience to wait for the offer creates that self-fulfilling prophecy that then you're going to look at it and say, well, offers work. So it's not a case of offers work better. It's just you can't figure out how to do it without offers. And actually, the urgency for someone to join your membership should come from you having the best damn solution to the most pushing problem. Like, if I've got a splitting headache and I go to the pharmacy, am I going to stand and look at a pack of painkillers and think, I would buy those if there was a 20% discount on them? Nah, I'm going to go home. No, I've got a headache. I'm going to throw money at whoever's got the painkiller that is going to
assume that the more expensive solution is probably the best one.
Oh, always. I'll always buy the name brand painkillers because you assume, well, the name brands, they must have more stuff in them that more pain eating microbes or whatever. They're usually made in the same factory, right? Like pricing decisions don't work on logic like that. But on the flip side, if my doctor has kind of said, you know what, try and get a little more vitamin B, vitamin D, vitamin A, a little bit more. Okay, oh, I'll get some vitamins. I'll get some vitamins for both of our for both pronunciations, vitamins, vitamins. If I then go into a pharmacy and I see those on the shelf and I look, oh, do I want to pay 15 pound for vitamins? And then I see one that's like £7 discount. I'll just get those ones
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
vitamins are a nice to have. They're not a must have. So if your product is perceived as a vitamin and not a painkiller, you're probably going to have more resistance to actually paying full price. So for anyone, sorry, for the other part of your question, what should people who are relying on offers actually look at? You need to do a cohort analysis on your churn. First and foremost, churn is the metric, not sales. Sales figures do not matter if you don't have the churn that backs them up. Because
LTV?
yeah, LTV ultimately is the best. LTV is the ultimate. Churn is a mechanism of LTV, but yeah, I love that you said LTV. I kind of have the feel of like, I'll get people to just accept they need to look at their churn rate, and then like when they're a little further on, we'll talk about LTV because you know yourself, like members who churn, they usually come back. So when you actually measure things over like a 10-year lens, you know, someone who as an individual might churn quite often, they could end up spending a whole fortune with you. But
But
going off down,
if you decrease your churn, you're gonna increase LTV
yeah,
as a result of that, and
that's
there's a
why
lot
they're
of mechanisms of that,
yeah,
of
most people
decreasing it.
yeah, and they're trying to find how to increase the profitability in their membership, and they're just pulling on the sales lever. When actually you can increase the LTV and increase the revenue in your business without attracting a single extra person. If you look at improving your churn and also increasing the average revenue per user, so getting them to upgrade to higher levels, getting them to purchase upsells. So yeah, churn and ARPU, average revenue per user, they're things to look at. But if you are running offers, you need to look at what your overall churn is and the impact on that churn. Looking at the average revenue per user will actually tell a story as well, because if you're seeing sales go up but the ARPU go down, that's telling you that these offers are having a detrimental impact on the surface.
Mm.
Like you're getting a higher sales number, but the actual average revenue per user is being eroded. And the problem with that is when you realize that's an issue, it's usually too late. But ideally, you also want to be doing a cohort analysis on that churn. So if you can do like literally track the month to month churn on the people who've joined on a specific offer, or even just on a month, like, so if you know you're running an offer, a Black Friday offer in November, um, do that monthly cohort analysis. So what percentage of that group of people who join are still there past the end of month one? How many are then there past the end of quarter one? How many are there past the end of year one? And how does that stack up against the other, um, the other levels, the full price? Because yeah, if your churn's high, lifetime value tanks, and ultimately that's where the game is. There was a couple of other things actually on discounts that I meant to say. So I'm a fan of, if you know, if you want to experiment with different things, a couple of things I do. One, for trials in discount clothing. So this is what I like to do.
Mm.
So instead of giving a 14-day trial, offer someone their first month half price. Literally the same offer. You're giving them 2 weeks free, but you at least are monetizing it a little bit. You're getting them to stay beyond the 14 days. So yeah, if you want to give someone a discount, give them their first month half price, or give them their first 2 months for the price of one. It's a 1 month trial. It's just packaged and presented a little bit differently. Or discount for longer commitment periods. So
Annual upgrader.
do a discount on the annual upgrade. Annual should always be charged at around 10x the monthly, like at a maximum. It makes the math and the value proposition real easy for people to calculate. Oh wow, yeah, it's so obviously better value to go annual. Quarterly as a, if you
Quarterly's
ask me,
great.
yeah, quarterly works so well. And my theory around that, and again, it's hard to quantify, is that annual to people where annual feels like too big a commitment, financial or otherwise. Um, 90 days feels manageable, but I also think people see it as being far more realistic that they will accomplish something and
Yeah.
use something over a 90-day period than in a month. If I'm presented with your offer, for example, next month, I would not join a membership in June because I've got like a festival, I've got 2 conferences I'm going to, I've got like 6 console calls already booked. I'm not joining anything in June because I know I'm not going to use it. So if I'm making, even though, yeah, okay, I could join and then waste my first month, well, I'm not going to do that. So I'll wait. If I'm given a 90-day offer, okay, well, all right. So maybe I'll be a little slow starting, but I'm going to use this thing. And I think people can more realistically foresee an outcome in 3 months' time than they can in 4 weeks. Quarterly's always been one of those things that's befuddled me because, like, when we've ran offers where for a limited amount of time we've let people join quarterly, and that's literally it. Like, it's not that attractive an offer. It's just, it's maybe like 5 or 10% off what it would cost them if they were paying month to month. It's a better deal than if they went month to month, not as good as if they went annual. It's not that compelling, but people go nuts for it. And I do think it's right in that Goldilocks zone of, do I think I'm actually going to use this and get anything out of it? 3 months? Yeah, I think I could. So,
Yeah.
no, just want to share
I,
those.
I agree. I think it's underutilized. And I remember I was part of a business community for a while and they charged quarterly. This was years ago. And it's still not really a thing to charge quarterly. It's usually just monthly and annual, but or even like a lifetime thing. But the other mechanic of that I found really interesting, in addition to what you just said, is also if your pricing is in such a way where it's not like it's an amount that you feel like, okay, if I spend this money, I'm gonna have a level of commitment to this thing. It's not nothing. It's not an inconsequential amount of money, but it's also not so much money to where I'm like, crap, I need to cancel this. This is too big a hit. But when it's like, oh, this is like 100 and if it's weird, if it's like 150, 250, like I don't even know how to mentally categorize this
Mhm.
according to my usual like Gmail filters in my head of cancel or stay. So it kind of bypasses your pattern recognition, if you will, because it's so underutilized. So, and I bet, although I don't have any data on this, that the LTV would be higher
Yeah.
on quarterly members.
Yeah, I'm still like, because we've done it so infrequently, and this is something we're going to experiment with coming up. Actually, we're going to be testing it on our non-buyers, so the people who've been on the list for a while and they've just not joined. I'm going to test out a 90-day launch pass, and it will just provide. I think I'm undecided whether I want to just give 90 days of access, just in general, or just 90 days where they get just the stuff for launching. So the full launch roadmap, the email templates, some of the tech stuff, and make it 90 days, but also make it non-recurring. And both,
Non-recurring. It's a
yeah, and
bold
both.
move.
I like experimenting, I'm just curious about that.
That's going to be
Like,
the new recurring, non-recurring.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, and then of course and this is the thing, like, so, like when I worked with Scott's bass lessons years back, his annual membership was non-recurring. I could not get him to shift on that. He refused, point blank refused. Scott was an amazing client. He took like he followed my lead on so many things, but he was adamant. He wanted to be non-recurring and to make continuing an opt-in, an active thing.
Mm.
And hell, it worked like gangbusters. So yeah, I'm just curious. I am curious. And the thing is, I shared this with some of the people, some of my clients in the mastermind. And of course, I'm mapping out campaigns for the next 6 months. And like, I think 2 of them went away and just executed a test on a 90-day pass, like immediately, faster than I could. And the results they're getting are just been insane. So, cool. Yeah. You're welcome for that.
There you go.
Yeah. You're welcome for that. But also that kind of validates the thinking. No, it is an
So they're the
interesting
guinea
one.
pigs. They're the beta testers, and
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. You do the new stuff. Take the risk.
Okay, so a bit of a provocative question here, also coming onto some of these mechanics of offer and terms. You've described, again, if my research is correct, that overpromising is a form of bait and switch, I think were the words you used. And that if a membership doesn't deliver what the marketing sold, members naturally feel let down. I want to extend that and say that for an established membership, let's say where the marketing, assuming the marketing is honest and that there's real value there, but the infrastructure has leaks such as payment failures, login sharing that you wouldn't even really be aware of, let's say, bugs, access and UI issues that cause friction, and to some degree cancellation. If the marketing promised a seamless experience or a particular result and the experience interfered with the getting of that result, would that be considered a kind of unintentional tech induced bait and switch?
I think it absolutely can be. And I think the difference is we usually don't center anything in our marketing around a website is so easy and intuitive to use. And we don't actually focus on the experience from a, obviously not from a technical point of view, but the what it feels
User.
like, what it feels like,
Hmm.
the user experience. We usually don't market on that basis. And so I'm sure no one would ever think, well, that is a bait and switch. But there's the promises that you explicitly make, and there's the promises that you don't say, you don't express, but that your brand, your reputation, the relationship you have with your audience, all of those infer a promise. When you are seen as high quality, high class, respectable, well established, and then you deliver a terrible member experience, that I think generates more of a negative result for that person and a negative impression of you than if you were a scrappy startup.
For sure.
If you're a scrappy startup and your website is hanging together by sticky tape and blue tack, people forgive it. They almost expect it. We've seen, again, you've been in this game a long time. We've seen some of the most successful websites, not just memberships,
Oh, yeah. Fugly.
shocking, horrible,
Yeah.
ugly, just disgusting. But if they are fronted by people who everything around how they present and show up would suggest, it would make you assume they would have their stuff together, and any website, any interaction or experience is going to be of a certain caliber. When it fails to hit that, that causes more problems than if you were like, yeah, if you were just a bit less on a pedestal. And I think people underestimate just how frustrating those niggling issues are. Um, like they can make or break. It doesn't matter how great your content is. It doesn't matter how great you are. Like if there is friction in just the everyday use, it does not take a lot to break a habit, to break goodwill.
Mm.
It really, really doesn't, because I think the frustration that comes from that friction is so amplified these days. But yeah, I think when people expect the highest standard, that's where the bait and switch is, and it's not so much you're promising something you can't deliver on. It's just you're not fulfilling the standards people expect of you.
Yeah.
Um, if they have, yeah, if people really look up to you and they have issues logging in, or your website always runs so slow, or they get an email saying the subscription's being cancelled because their payments have been failing, but they never got any reminder or notification from you, those things hit harder than they would from the scrappier, kind of less polished, less professional. And yeah, I know one of the things I do inside Membership Academy, I run something called Membership Insider, which honestly is just a bit of a venting exercise for me. So I'll just join big name, successful, prolific memberships and hit record and just record my reactions in real time,
Okay.
uncensored, although I try not to swear. And it's almost always tech issues I get annoyed with, because when I'm doing it and I'm thinking, these people should know better. If I'm reviewing a just an average membership, I'll be kinder, I'll be fairer. And that's not because of the person. That's just because, like, if you are a big brand and I have issues logging in, I do think, like, I shouldn't be having this kind of experience with your kind of company. And if I think you should have the budget, you should have you have no excuses. You've got the budget, you've got the resources to make this all work properly. You can invest. So if it's buggy, then I interpret that as, okay, well, obviously you don't really actually care about this membership. You've not
It's
put in
kind of
the
like it brings this really, I think, kind of hilarious image into my head. If you imagine walking into like a Louis Vuitton store and the sliding door, like you push the button, doesn't open, and then it kind of
yeah,
opens and then it like slams you in the rib, and then you come up and the attendant's like, "Can I help you?" And then you're like, "Okay, screw it," and you get the bag you want, and you go to check out, and you whip out your credit card. They're like, "We don't take Mastercard," or
yeah,
whatever. You'd be like, "I'm trying to give you money. Like, what the
yeah.
f?"
Oh, the credit card example is such a great example. So, I've got an American Express that earns air miles, and over in the UK, we don't have American Express in many places anyway. It's American. I think we're English. We're like, we don't want.
It's not a really big thing in the EU,
But
eh?
but yeah, like with Amex, there was already kind of like quite a lot of stores that wouldn't accept it. If I
Mhm.
go into a small independent retailer and they don't accept it, I don't think twice about it. I know that Amex charge them quite a fee to accept it. But if I go into a high street retailer and they don't accept it, I get annoyed because it's like, why the hell wouldn't you? Why are you making it hard for me to give you money? And yeah, the Louis Vuitton example, and yeah, you walk into McDonald's and there's a spilled milkshake on the floor with a wet floor sign by it. Fairly regular. You walk into a five-star restaurant and you have a spilled drink on the floor with a wet floor sign and no members. Yeah, like this matters. The things that bring so many people to you, your reputation, are also the things that can kill you if you don't live up to it. And the well, I remember doing the review of the Fender membership. I was really curious about that one because I've done a lot of work with a lot of people in the music industry with their
Mhm.
memberships, and there's so many successful memberships in the music space. So I was curious about Fender coming in because I kind of had a feeling they're not going to put anywhere near as much into it as I know that all these fantastic independent experts have done with theirs. And I remember just being so like underwhelmed and frustrated and annoyed because everywhere I turned, I was like, this should just be so much better. It's Fender. They've got money. They've got a head start. They've got these advantages. They've clearly just half-assed this. The Mixergy membership, Andrew Warner,
Mhm.
in kind of big name in the online space. I think Mixergy's maybe fizzled away now. Um, and I had like a show-stopping bug in the sign-up process. And if you want a good laugh, honestly, go watch that because it was something where they just tied together a few poorly integrated tools, and I got a fatal error on one of them,
Oh, no.
and that meant that the subscription was set up, but the account wasn't set up, and I was getting emails chastising me for failed payments that were got. And I couldn't get anyone to actually cancel the subscription for me. If you listen to it back, it's the only time I've had to pause the recording to calm down and come back to it later. And if that had happened with just a run of the mill average person in my community, I'd be more forgiving. But the bigger the name, that's where the bait and switch is when your reputation and the
The
experience
incongruency.
is just incongruent. Yeah.
Yeah, the incongruency bothers us as humans
Mm.
somehow. And that actually dovetails with like the AI conversation that I guess we need to get to here at some point, which is this idea of I just heard about this yesterday, or was it yesterday or this morning, of the uncanny valley. Have you heard this thing?
Yes, that always used to be talked about in terms of like CGI,
Right.
in terms of like the closer the appearance of a CGI character or a video game character got to human, the more our natural inbuilt repulsion would kick in. And
Yes.
it's threat management. It's our brain knows it recognizes danger. Um, yeah, and
Yeah,
that's
it's like
with AI.
this looks like a normal human being that I'm talking to, but something in my intuition is telling me, oh, maybe they're actually like some kind of like malignant narcissist. Like maybe that's where that comes from. But certainly with AI, I think we're seeing that. We're seeing that a lot of outputs are eerily plausible, but just somehow don't conform to the actual reality of human living on Earth. But how would you How do you see people using AI for their memberships, and what is sort of what's the shiny object syndrome to avoid, and then what are actual legit use cases?
I mean, I think the shiny object is the notion of I can get this thing to write for me. I can get this thing to be me. I think that is for experts and influencers who are running memberships. I think that's the shiny object. This can replace the effort I need to go to record a podcast, create a course, because for so long when content's been such a heavy focus of the value proposition for memberships, that content treadmill is real. Like content creation um, is something that takes up so much time and brain space for a lot of memberships. Um, so the notion of I can just have AI step in and just be me. I mean, yeah, there's AI generated podcasts now with human sounding voices spouting human sounding advice.
Mhm.
Um, there are there's something called is it Delphi that lets you create an AI chatbot that is trained. And I experiment with this. I trained it on like 6 million words, like on 10 years worth of podcast episodes, and it's good. Like it was good. It could answer questions referring to sort of like it's similar
Kinda, sorta,
technology.
right?
Yeah, like kind of, sort of. That's the thing. The uncanny valley was kind of almost there, but it's like, eh. But also you could call it. So you could have a phone conversation with this chatbot that approximated your voice and gave your, and ultimately, again, it's just, there's no substitute. There's enough flaws in it that I was just like, I'm not even going to jokingly put this into the membership. I did have this idea of, you can get real Mike if you're willing to wait like 48 hours for my response, or you get Robo Mike. Like he's not as good, but he works hard. Like I was really going to frame those two, and I was like, no, actually, I scrapped it. I got rid of that chatbot. And I think that's the shiny object. It's looking for ways we can get lazy. Like, how can I use this to do the hard work? When actually, I think in terms of content generation, and I'm far from an AI expert, by the way. Um, I'm as skeptical as I am excited and optimistic. But I think the real use is to use it as a hardworking assistant who's very knowledgeable, very skillful, very well meaning, but also naive and needs meticulous training, feedback, checking on, and who is a people pleaser to a fault. Because I think most people don't realize AI, generative AI, its purpose is not to create the best work. Its purpose is to make you happy. Because it makes you happy, you'll keep using it and you'll keep paying for it. It's not to give you the best output. It is to do what it thinks is going to satisfy you the most. Because their model is not like Google's was, where it was deliver the best search results. Their model is keep people hooked, keep people subscribed. So that's why it'll always give you new ideas at the end. It'll always like, oh yeah, it'll always tell you you're amazing because you're not going to pay something that tells you that your ideas are stupid, right? So that's all kind of, I think, the amalgamation of the shiny object. Like we can use it to replace the need to have a professional designer. We can use it to replace my need to sit down and create actually good content. When actually we should use it for the research, use it for shaping and sharpening ideas,
Mhm.
use it for reminding you of things you've said before and the way you've expressed it. Use it for choosing between ideas and brainstorming, but use it as a partner. Use it as a junior, like an assistant, someone who ultimately is helping you, not replacing you. You shouldn't be the one helping it. It should be the one helping you to the end result. So I think I've seen people refer to it as the sandwich. Like you use it at the start for the ideation and the brainstorming, and then, or is it like you do the ideation and the brainstorming, then they create a chunk of it, and then you
Yeah, that sounds right.
create it. Yeah, and that's how I've used it in the past, uh, and probably will continue to use it. Like if it's given extensive prompt. It's got a big body of work to draw from, and a lot of how I'll use it is honestly, it's almost as memory. It's like I've said so much over the last 10 years. Right, I need to now create something that essentially packages up all my thoughts on member onboarding. How many
Yeah.
different ways have I talked about this in the past? Can you just like crystallize like my best stuff? So yeah, I think the real opportunities, coding's a big one. Like
Coding's a big one. But
coding's such a big one.
but I think that's even despite the fact that it's inverted the generation versus QA
Mm,
equation. From it used to be you had to spend a lot of time generating code and like minding the syntax and frick, I forgot like a colon, a semicolon somewhere. Now it's the opposite, where now you're doing a lot more QA. But there's a concept from Strategic Coach called Who Not How, which I think is trademarked, so I hope we don't get sued on this one. But basically, the idea is that anytime, particularly in a more established organization where you have the resources, as a founder, as an entrepreneur in particular, you're a problem solver oftentimes. So you encounter a problem, and then especially now with Claude Code and whatnot, you're like, oh, I'm gonna code up an app and I'm gonna solve this problem. And so what you're doing is you're moving to the how, without considering whether or not you're the appropriate who, because AI is as you said, it's some kind of autistic savant type
yeah,
genius that has no social skills, or is like obsequious or whatever. And so if you're not a coder and you try to use AI to code, will you produce something that is maybe like production ready locally? Maybe. Will you also maybe like leak the API keys to your bank to the internet? Maybe, probably. And so, but you're not really in a position to, you don't know what you don't know so far as computer science goes. Likewise, if like, even for things it's really good at, like anything to do with word processing, I'm not going to let AI write my copy. Uh, I'll like supervise it and it might do some of the heavy lifting, but like any copywriter worth their salt, or anybody who's been online long enough and was writing copy before there was AI, uh, it's a really hard thing. It's extremely specific. Every word is there for a reason. You like AI just kind of, it kind of like emulates it, but doesn't really understand it. Um, and so it's a how, but it's not a who. So I think my thesis is, if you want to use AI effectively, you should let the people who know that area of business, whether it's coding, marketing, sales, whatever, be the ones to use it.
yeah. It needs to. It's a vehicle. It needs the right driver. It's going to make skilled people more efficient and unskilled people more dangerous. Yeah.
100%. Well, look, I did have a question about more of the psychology of churn, right? We were
Mm.
talking a lot about churn. So, for example, and we talked about this earlier, that there's a saying in the therapeutic world that the thing is not the thing. And I've heard Hormozy say this too, vis-a-vis sales. He says, like, the objection that you're being told is not the real objection. Um, when somebody's running a membership, particularly for the larger, more established ones, and you're looking at their cancellation data, what do you usually see as the gap between what they're telling you they're leaving for versus what you suspect is actually going on? And how can you even understand what the real reason is? Would you need to get on a call with them? Like, how do you survey effectively and get real useful data and not just people pleasing data?
Yeah, I think it's a really, really good question because, of course, when you're looking at exit surveys, um, any sort of exit survey needs to be very unobtrusive because, again, we have increasing regulations around this, around how simple and straightforward canceling a subscription needs to be. We cannot get in the way. We can't make, and it's kind of becoming illegal to have someone who's canceling an online subscription they signed up for online call into a call center where you can have that conversation and you can really annoy them by probing deeper. Plus, also, when someone's on the way out, they're not in the mood 90% of the time to actually really delve into the why. They are assuming if you are asking too much, it is to facilitate a pitch or some sort of claw into them. So it's that challenge when people are on the way out of getting just enough data, but not really being able to get the context that you need in most cases. And sometimes people do just leave it as that. Like you say, the thing's not the thing, but they'll say, okay, why did you leave? Can't afford the payments. Okay, my price is too high then. And
Mm.
that's rarely the case. Um, Often, if someone, particularly leaving because I don't have enough time or leaving because I can't afford it, usually has nothing to do with the fact that they are time poor or money poor. It's usually a value judgment around the investment of that time and money. It's like, I don't feel I got enough out of it, or I can get enough out of it to justify spending $50 on this rather than $50 on that. It's not that I don't have the $50, but I think people take it at that surface level. Okay, they say they can't afford it. God, everyone's leaving because they can't afford it. That means my membership is unaffordable. As opposed to, that means that I'm just not onboarding them the right with the problem to be in the onboarding. I'm not onboarding them the right way that makes sure that they actually get straight in and get results so that they never question the value. Or the kind of marketing I'm doing is setting their expectations so high that they would never feel like they're getting value. So it is definitely the short sightedness, the lack of context tends to be where the gap is. Um, there's also a lack of understanding of the long term. Usually, money and time are temporary reasons. Someone leaving because they've achieved what they joined for is sometimes a temporary reason.
Mhm.
Someone says they can't afford it and they genuinely can't afford it this month. That doesn't mean they're never going to be able to afford it again. Quite often, it just means things are a bit tight. They're a little worried about money. They're tightening the purse strings, or they're just not in the right situation right now to get the most out of it. But it's a temporary situation. In 3 months' time, 6 months' time, things might have changed, or they might have realized the grass isn't greener, or they might have actually come to realize the value that they were getting that perhaps wasn't
Mhm.
apparent to them, and they'll come back. Like, there was a stat last year, 1 in 4 of every new subscription that was started came from a previous subscriber of that company, right across the subscription industry.
Interesting.
25%. Now, in our survey, like we're big advocates on member win back campaigns. You know, cancellation isn't condemnation. Like, you'll always be able to get some people to come back. So when we've run our for us, it's about 25% on average come back within 12 months. When we run our survey for people who do win back campaigns, they kind of average out at 15%. So even if we say 15% of people who leave for whatever reason, the thing that's causing them to leave is not permanent. They could be in a position where they want to come back. Most online business owners would kill for a 15% conversion rate on their email list. And yet, membership businesses are sitting with a segment of their email list that has a potential conversion rate of 15%. They're lapsed members. But it's often the lack of nuance, the lack of context, the lack of big picture, and the lack of long-term viewpoint that people miss out on. Um, and anything we can do, and it is difficult to kind of get all these data points, but anything we can do to tie in, what did they tell us when they joined? What was did they join on an offer? What did they tell us they came here for? How did they actually engage?
Mm.
What was their actual behavior? Um, and does that change the context of them leaving? And then absolutely following up with them after they've gone. We ask people why they've left as part of the survey. We have a drop down. Obviously, the reason they choose leads them off to a salvage page where we kind of say, you know, I get it. You don't feel you have too much time. Have you tried this? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So we'll give them different salvage options depending on the reason that they choose. Because again, sometimes people cancel because they don't realize there's any other option. Being
Mm.
subscribed to most of your subscribers, their subscription status feels binary. I'm either subscribed or I'm not. If they know they can't continue to be subscribed right now, they might not know they could downgrade. They might not understand how actually upgrading could be better for them. You know, it might help them get better results faster, which
Mhm.
justify the spend. They might not know there's an option to pause. They might not know that you have other services. So a lot of people who are going to cancel, they're not canceling because they want to leave. They are canceling because they don't want to be active and stay. That makes sense. And there's nuance between the two, because a downgrade to a more affordable level could be a more preferable alternative for them. A pause for 3 months could be a preferable alternative to them. An upgrade to a level that has personal access to you that they didn't realize was available could actually serve them better. I know we're kind of going off topic here, but again, it's just around the cancellations. It's recognizing it's never as cut and dry. It's never as binary. It's never just about the cancellation event. There's a bigger picture we've got to tie it to. So yeah, when people cancel, we ask them that reason. We go through the salvage. We keep things as unobtrusive as possible, but we still follow up with an email afterwards, where it's kind of like, was it something we said? Like, we're sorry you've had to go. We'd love to learn a little more. Can you hit reply and let us know? And people will reply with paragraphs, where they are, what the circumstance is. And that extra context totally changes things. The other thing I would say, because I've seen this a few times, just as a little side tip, if you're seeing that one reason in your cancellation survey is dominating the rest, make sure that it's not the default option in a dropdown, because some surveys I've seen, you select your reason from a dropdown list, but there's already the first option on that select list is already pre-selected.
And you're just going to be like, yeah, click, click, click.
Click, 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 I'm gone. So at the very least, make that first option like a non-option, select a reason from this list. Because I have seen people come and say, everyone's leaving saying that they've achieved, like they're leaving because they've accomplished what they joined for. How do I tackle that? Because that's the most positive cancellation there is. And there's ways and means, but when I looked at it, it's like, yeah, that's the default value. People could be leaving. You don't know why people are leaving. They are just hitting no, goodbye, and not even changing that. So just a little side thing.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because it's an easy mistake to make.
Yeah, and it actually wasn't off topic at all. It anticipated my next question, which was around what you think, or what maybe you used to believe or understand about memberships in this business and the mechanics, the actual execution, that now maybe you've changed your mind on. It could be a tactic. You just mentioned sort of a tactic, but it also could be an assumption or a premise or something counterintuitive that maybe people don't understand. We also talked about the quarterly billing. That's an example.
Massive example, that one. And again, after 10 years running, 11 years running the membership, 4 years prior to that, working with clients, I still only have theories as to why that's more, that works so well. And I love the fact that I don't know. But no, there's a few things I've kind of shifted perspective of. I don't think there's anything I feel I was wrong on that has changed, because I don't think membership space is that divisive. I've softened my stance on closed door slightly, but I still really
On what now?
use that. The closed door model, I've softened my stance a tiny bit, but I still feel open doors the way you should go. False scarcity isn't the way to go. So there's a lot of, I think, opinions that have become a little more complex. I would say the always having known the potential win backs, but I don't think I really grasped the long game, even as much as for someone who's been preaching memberships about the long game. I don't think I really fully saw just how potent that is. And I think part of that is because we started doing this when memberships were so early. There was no 10-year membership, 15-year membership. But now I'm sitting on 12 years, and literally people who joined within the first hour of me launching are still there. That is mind-blowing to me. So not so much more an appreciation that's developed, but I think maybe the main thing comes to content and the role of content in memberships. Like when we were consulting, we were handling strategy, tech, marketing, all that stuff, but we had nothing to do with the content. We weren't the experts. So that was just like, that's just something that happens. Experts can create content easily, right? We knew that it took a long time, because obviously we're not stupid. And we knew all of our clients worked hard. But when we actually start the membership, the real impact of having to be a content creator and having to serve in that way took us back a little bit, just how heavy that process could be. And I think in the early days, I used to lean a bit too much towards the connection between volume and value. This was around the time everyone wanted to be the Netflix of their industry, right? Well, the Netflix of fitness, the Netflix of that. And for a while, yeah, I think it worked for some people. And so, while I've always known it's not about the stuff, it's about what the stuff makes possible. There was still that connection to, value comes from having a big content library, from covering every single base. And I did think myself when I was creating courses that for the course to be valuable, it had to cover all the bases, leave no stone
Mm.
unturned, no question unanswered. If there was a problem my audience had that had like 100 ways to solve it, I needed to address every single one of them. So I was obsessed when creating stuff with telling people all the things they could do instead of just saying, here's the one thing you should do. And that took me years to figure out. Honestly, Vic, I sat down to create a course, and you'll have seen it. It was in the academy for a while, called the Member Lifecycle course. And it was about the life cycle of a member. It's acquisition, onboarding, engagement, retention, and reactivation. And so this was a 5-module course. Yeah, module's going to be like an hour or two, right? Dude, this course came out at like 18 hours. And this was just a course. This was just a course in a membership. It wasn't like the signature. It was 18 hours. And that's because when I was talking about lead generation, I just put this pressure on myself. Like, I need to cover every possible way you could get someone to subscribe to your email list. Otherwise, someone's going to come along and say, oh, well, you covered methods 1 through 99, but what about method 100? This sucks. Your membership sucks. You don't know what you're doing. I'm gone. So it took me a long
Mm.
time to get that. And honestly, and I'm self-aware enough to know so much of that came from insecurity and imposter syndrome. Yeah, like some of that's the background I'm from. People like me don't accomplish things like I have done with a membership. And it just led me to overcompensate, massively so. That switch, that realization, like, well, frequently do content audits and look at how people engage and where they drop off, and actually sitting a couple of years away from a big content drive and look at like, none of this is bad, but this course is basically like 120 podcast episodes. Like the surface, like we're saying the what and the why. It's just not going deep, and it's not giving anyone any clarity.
This is more
And
for you than
it was for, yeah,
for them,
it
yeah?
was for me, and it was for every possibility. It was so that I would never really have a situation where someone would say, have you got any advice on webinars? Where I couldn't say, oh
All
yeah,
of it.
I've got a lesson on it. Yeah, I've got a lesson, I've got a course, I've got a workshop on it. And yeah, that shift, I think it took a good 4 or 5 years to come around. And yeah, really dialing that in as an educator. Yeah, I'm not an instructional designer. I'm not naturally an educator. I'm just learning as I go. That took a little while to figure out that less is just so much more, that there's more value in what's not there than there is in what's there. People want direction. They want the solution, and they trust you to tell them what that is. So it was definitely insecurity, definitely imposter syndrome, that overconversation. I see that a lot. Like, and trying to get people to realize if you can solve someone's problem in one 5-minute video, solve it in one 5-minute video and be the person who gives them an instant win. Don't sit down and look at, okay, but one 5-minute video doesn't feel very valuable. It doesn't have the appearance, the aesthetic of value. And I think we get too concerned with the appearance of value rather than the actual creation of value. And so you look at this thing as I could just do like a short tutorial on this and that's all they need. But how can I blow that up into a 20 lesson course that feels like there's more substance to it?
Right.
And that just, I think more and more, that's less effective now. And our members get better results than they ever have done. And we've got less content than we've ever done. I culled my content library recently, and the amount of stuff I was able to retire or redo and just do this thing. If you're doing Facebook ads, do this exact campaign. If you are setting up your onboarding. Your onboarding is these 4 steps. This is exactly what I have in each of them. Like that, I feel so good about that content. The results people get are so much better. But it's in terms of volume, there's less in the academy than there's ever been, but it's doing so much more than it ever has. Dude, my first ever Q&A slash live training thing was 3.5 hours. Like nothing, nothing needs to be that long. I didn't even talk about anything. So yeah, that's my biggest shift, I think, is the iteration to make things more concise. Seeing the value in addition by subtraction and yeah, realizing so much more value comes from what's not there than what's actually there. Because people, especially now with AI, they do not have a content problem. Their problem is not access to content and
And they
solution.
have an attention problem
They have an attention
at the
problem.
same time. Yeah.
Yeah, they're attention starved, time starved. They want results. The patience isn't there. Like, get them to where they want to get to as quick as possible, and then show them how you can take them further.
I love that. I love in general the via negativa, right? It's like, is it more important in life to be to get a little philosophical here? Is it more important to be smart or is it more important to not be stupid? It is infinitely more important to not make unforced errors than to be quote smart. And some of the quote dumb people that I know who are massively successful and a lot of smart people I know and I would lump myself into this category are, probably could be a lot further ahead if I were a little stupider. Um, and I don't even say that in a disparaging way. I just mean that it's a misapprehension of what value looks like, as you said, the aesthetic. But it's almost like also if let's say you're in a conversation with somebody and they're explaining some kind of point to you. If they go on and they're like really trying to convince you, you become skeptical. But if they're just like, yeah, this is the thing. This is totally the thing. And you're like, wow. I mean, that was so concise. Like, I believe that.
Yeah,
And
it's the confidence to it, and I think if you're not naturally an educator, I think that's part of the thing is you could be wired that way in coaching, in consulting, just in conversation. But I think for a lot of people who are experts in their field, they're not necessarily experts in creating education, like in teaching their field. And that transition and figuring out how to be concise, how having the nerve to actually eliminate all the other options without having to explain, like without having to put a 20-minute lesson beforehand saying, I'm not going to talk about this because of the like no, and
no,
if someone has
that's weak.
yeah, if someone has a problem with that, cool. Like fine. That's all right.
Makes me, it reminds me of James Schramko. I worked with him for a while.
Yeah, yeah, look, James.
Wonderful coach. Has been in the game for
James
forever
is
and ever.
James is a very early mentor of mine. A lot of that initial introduction to the subscription world came from James, from his what at the time was Fast Web
Super
Formula.
fast.
Oh, it's Fast
Oh,
Web
before super
Formula.
fast.
Yeah, and then that became Super Fast. Yeah, he was one of the pioneers, I think, James.
He is. And he's also ruthlessly minimalistic,
Mm,
in the sense that, well, when I joined his membership, and this was maybe like over a year ago that I worked with him, he had 2 tiers. He had, like a low level tier. He's always experimenting too, so none of these things are, they're always in flux. But at that time, there was like a $29 a month thing, and you get access to a forum, and you could talk to people, and you could message him, and then you could join group calls. And then there was 1,000 a month, which I think now is like 3 or 5,000 a month, where it's just you and a cohort of other people kind of in a similar place, and you join the call, but you lose access to the forum and to the private messaging. You actually get less,
wow.
but you get more because you get
Yeah.
access to a private unrecorded call in a mastermind type of, like a hot seat type of a format. And it's like great because really, especially if it's driven by personal brand, you want access to the person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
And the other stuff's a distraction. And yeah, kind of knowing from James and my time in his membership in the early days and sort of when I end up leaving, and I dropped in as you do, you drop in for
Yeah.
the people every now and then. Um, and there was certainly a point I think I reached where you do outgrow where a lot of the people in the community are. And everyone's going to have that. So the notion that actually when you join that higher tier, you have taken away from you the things that would, don't want to say will pull you back, but like they will be a distraction. So making it so that actually you're not still in the, most people will do the opposite. They will like, you also get access to the community. They'll give you that, the regular membership as a value add, but actually by taking that away, you guarantee that 100% of the interactions you have in James's world are at your level. Because actually you could be having, you say you have one conversation per day in James's high level community, but then you read 10 other conversations that same day in his regular membership, then that ratio of signal versus noise
Mhm.
goes against what the higher tier is about. So actually, I think that's again typically Schramko kind of move. It's a genius. Control the signal versus noise. We just take away even the possibility you're going to get noise. So while you might have fewer interactions, every single one is going to be higher caliber. I love that. So
100%.
addition by subtraction. Brilliant.
Well, I think we can get into our last question here and start wrapping it up because we've been going for a little while. But you mentioned Scott's bass lessons earlier. He's kind of one of your iconic success stories
Love
slash,
Scott.
yeah. Um, and what's really interesting is that they grew from donations to a multi-million-dollar business. We've worked with a lot of music memberships. I've seen kind of low tier, high tier, and that's actually a pretty good. That gives confluence to the fact that the space doesn't matter that much, or the topic doesn't matter that much. That you just need to have fundamentally sound business practices around marketing, etc. But anyway, I guess a lot of that early stuff was your hands-on consulting help. I know you don't take client work anymore, although you do run an accelerator. I'd love to hear about that, and I'd love to hear what what you're seeing and what are already established businesses, membership businesses, what got them here? Is it going to get them there? Like, what do they need to be doing? What adaptations do they have to make to grow to the next level, whatever that looks like to them?
Yeah, I think getting bullish on the actual member experience and on getting people to value as quickly as possible. So I think the initial stages of starting the membership, it's got your content, you got your community, it's getting people into those, but actually looking at how we personalize the experience a lot more, how we can leverage the community so that it becomes a little more self-sufficient, a little self-sustaining, and more than just a function or a section of the membership. It's actually something that transcends it, where people feel the belonging, they feel ownership. Um,
Community is
and
huge.
yeah, like, I
It's
mean,
why I
that,
stay at
yeah,
any membership, basically.
1000%. If you've got a few forums that you're part of, but then you have your place where, no, those are my people. This is my community. You self-identify with a label. Um, again, thinking of Chris Ducker's membership in the early days when you had that was Youpreneur, and everyone in there referred to themselves as Yuppies. Like groupie, like, oh, yuppies. Oh, we organized our own little meetups and stuff like that. Like, it had nothing to do with Chris. Like, it became about us. Um, like on the academy, I'll refer to them as membershippers. And like, if you have that next level, that almost, like tribal element, these are my people.
How do you
This,
cultivate that? Because that's
it,
hard.
it starts with you. Like you have to show up and you have to set the pace and you have to set the tone. I think really dialing into um, what is driving your community. So I always talk about the 4 membership motivators. Most memberships are either predominantly driven by a pursuit of an outcome. So people have a goal they want to get to. A pursuit of mastery, so a lifelong refinement and perfection. A pursuit of community, so the people who actually all they want is to be with their people. And
Mm.
a pursuit of resources. Resource driven ones are typically the simplest and straightforward. They just want the stuff that makes their life easier. They're probably not ever going to, get in a drum circle and sing Kumbaya with their peers because they don't have time. They just want your stuff. That's cool. I think the main thing in everything is actually understanding which of those things is at the beating heart of your membership, because everything stems from that. So you'll see people who are desperately trying to cultivate that more tribal community without realizing their audience are purely resource driven. They don't want a community. They don't have time for it. They don't need it. That is not what they are here for. Like, so you're trying to kind of serve up steak in a veggie restaurant. Like, no,
Mm.
no one's ordering it. That's not what brought them in. So you can scrap that and just lean into facilitating what they actually need and want. Obviously, community driven audiences, they want the community stuff, right? Mastery and outcome, again, they want the community, but it's got to be purposeful. So I think really dialing into what is driving your members first and foremost and gearing everything around that, and setting the tone. So thinking about, okay, so like what does a successful, engaged, what does one of my people look like? What do we do? How do we behave? What do we think? And using that to create a manifesto of sorts.
Mm.
Be like, people like us think things like this.
Create a cult. It's a
Yeah,
cult.
it
Yeah.
essentially,
Same
but
psychology, actually, but with a
same sort of
positive
psychology.
intention.
Yeah, but it's just like, you know what? People like us um, aren't afraid of doing the hard work. People like us would rather have a thing in a membership is we'd rather have a small, highly engaged group of our own people than tens of thousands of people who are terrible. People like us recognize it's a long game. It's not
Mm.
about short term. So it's thinking about what are the principles, what are the values, what are the behaviors, and just defining that. And if you can come up for a name for a term for what people like us is, membershipers, UPs, don't know if Shramko ever had those. Ever had
Shramkies.
that? Shramkies. like coming up with those names. And Scots people, what do you call the Scots always had a fun one that I would never write anywhere, but it apparently means something to people who play bass. Low end lover. So he'd refer to them as like low end lovers. I don't know. It sounds euphemistic
It's
to
because the
me, but
bass is on the low end of the.
yeah, but it always just sounded too euphemistic for me to think. But like, no, they associated with it. So think of that terminology. Think of any other insider language. Like, what is your community? Again, Scots was the shed. He'd always like, we'll get in the shed. The community was called the shed. Screw the 95, Jill and Josh Stanton,
Mm-hmm.
there's as the screw, like, and their people were called the screwpies. Like, if you can come up with that language, come up with that identity, have that manifesto, and actually, like, early on, get people to essentially raise their hand
Yeah.
and agree to it. Like, this is, yeah, I made the pledge. Again, it's a little cult-esque, but obviously with good intention. Like, yeah, I made the pledge. I'm signing the manifesto. Like, incentivize them to do it. Have branded stuff with their label across it.
Mm-hmm.
Give that away in contests. Give it in a welcome pack.
Make it
Like,
cool, right? It's got to be
yeah,
cool.
absolutely brilliant. And right away, that turns it into something that they're part of and not just something that they pay for. All those kind of things, I think more and more people want that belonging. More and more people want safer spaces online. And I don't mean safe space where they're going to be free of anything that would ever possibly offend them or challenge them. Just safe spaces where, you can express an opinion and not get called all the names under the sun or not get trolled for it or bullied for it or shamed for not knowing enough or thinking
Mm.
this. Like, they want places where they don't feel at risk of the dredge of the wider internet. And I definitely think we see more of this contraction. Like, all the fantastic things that social media did for us have soured in so many ways, and people, I feel, are going more towards more ring fence communities. So if we can foster that belonging, and through doing that, we can encourage like the more ritualistic behaviors, the habits. People like us check in every Monday morning with our progress.
Mm-hmm.
Um, great guy called Funk Roberts runs Over 40s Alpha Brotherhood. You'll see him in the academic community. Relentlessly helpful and just epic dude. But
Mhm.
like his community has a ritual called sweaty selfies. Anytime you do a workout, the ingrained behavior is you do your workout, you're a mess, you're sweaty, you grab a selfie and you post it in that community group. You're showing that you're doing the work because people like us show up and do the work. Here's my proof. Here's my sweaty selfie. Hashtag sweaty selfie. Everyone jumps in and congratulates them on their workout. These are the kind of things that I think elevate member experience, elevate community, and give it a sense of belonging. So it's not just a membership, a training portal, a forum, or whatever. Like it's something you do. It's something you are. And that bleeds into so much outside. And it also, for you as a business owner, diversifies the potential for your business. Because if the membership model of subscription fatigue continues or builds, or you know, memberships go away, you haven't just built a product. You built something that does transcend whatever container it's in.
Mhm.
And you can run events, you can run higher level products, you can sell merch. It opens things up in so many ways. So yeah, I don't know if I've like strayed way off from where the conversation started, but I'm seeing more the memberships that are exciting to me as an industry observer that I'm seeing actually start to really thrive when a lot are contracting are ones where they are proper community. They wear that badge with honor. Like, yeah, we're going to business conferences and you can see they're all arranging their own little meetups, like their own little satellite things because they're just so excited to be in the same space as their people. Um, no, I'm definitely seeing that being the differentiating factor between the memberships where clearly there's nothing beyond what's in the content library and yeah.
That's really fascinating. I think that's a great place to stop as well. So guys, go out, create a cult. Uh,
Yeah, pretty cool.
don't drink any Kool-Aid,
No,
but create a positive cult. And thanks so much for coming on, Mike. It was really a pleasure
oh,
hearing your insights.
it's been fun, and it's always good to talk about this side of things as well, because you'll know yourself whenever you're talking about memberships. Quite often, it's kind of, should you use WordPress? Should you use Kajabi? What content do you have? Like, yeah, so it's just awesome to properly get into the thick of it. It's, yeah, I love stuff like this. Awesome. Cheers, Vic.